I'm Rod Duff from Insights and Straight Talk. And with that, folks, we've been talking about that trailer the last couple of times, and I'm gonna get after my editor. I kind of cheesed him a little bit earlier because that just shows only a few, but emphasizes the weaknesses of this show and my personality. And that last part in the dark, although I did talk to producer Barbie, you know, we communicate after every show. She'll probably be in the feed somewhere. Every once in a while she's on the show. But anyway, she liked that, thought it was cool. I did it a month or two ago because I was in the studio and it was just dark, and I looked down and the camera was on, and it looked really cool. So I thought I'd just mess around with it, and my editor grabbed it and threw it on there. But yeah, it is what it is. And I am so glad to see you guys again. This is the second show of the day. We usually go about an hour, and I have Sher with me. Her and I were joking back and forth. I took the easy route with the name because it's so cool, but I'm not. Oh, there's producer Barbie. You are being your authentic. You won't let me get away with anything. Yes, it is how I am. You know, I'm a bit of a goofball, but Sher. So going into chatting with her, we set this up a little bit ago, and she's a Chicagoan too. So producer Barbie, you're now a Californian, but she's amazing in her accomplishments that she's built to today. And she's obviously still got a lot to go. I mean, not even in the prime yet, but obviously a very intelligent woman. She works on a global level for strategies and support and influencing decisions and people in directions to go. She's one thing I said we were joking around a little bit, but the truth is, as she stated out, we need to get this next generation, especially of those that are more on the privileged side, you know, don't have to stress like kids that, you know, they'll do anything to make it because they know what this is like. Kids, a lot of people in this country don't know what that's like. She comes from Tehran. I hope I'm saying that right. And she's married to a Polish man, and it's a really cool name. But I'm going to she's going to embellish on that. But the amazing thing that is going on here is here's another person of abilities and knowledge that wants to give back. You know, that's what this country is based upon, is giving back. And so here we have somebody born in another country coming here at a young age and taking it and understanding and seeing the possibilities that are here, because we are the United States, and we are also talking. We still need to get our politicians under control. I mean, I see a utopia coming. Anyway, I'm not going to build up much on that. She and I had a really cool conversation in the back. I have a feeling this is going to be a very fun conversation as well. So where are you? So Sher, as you ready? Wave at me if you're ready. She's in the green room. She just waved at me, and I want to introduce Sher.
Hi, Rod Duff, the only man in America who sees the utopia coming.
I can explain myself too.
I'm sure you can, sir.
I don't know if you believe it, but I can explain myself.
Listen, I believe it. I come from hell. I always believe that there's an outside.
Talk about that. Talk about that. You did come from hell.
I do come from hell, but I'll tell
not
you.
Not literally hell, people, but
well, not literally. Yeah, I didn't actually escape the pits of the underworld. That would have been quite the accomplishment.
That was I like that.
If I did do that, I feel like that should be prominent on my book. It should just say by Shermin Kruse, she who escaped the perils of the underworld.
Yeah, you know how much attention you would get?
Oh my gosh, yeah, I'd be a hero. I'd be a hero. But no, this is
You
a very human kind of hell that we're talking about here.
Yeah, no kidding. So let's get into that. Talk a little bit about your book, and like I was saying, it seems that people with the least opportunity become the most having the most ability. So, and your story blows my mind. So let's get into your background and how you got here, and why the heck you're so robotically impressive at this young. And she's got 4 kids. 4 kids.
Dude, I have a clown car of children. That is true. So here's what I would say. I would say that it was rough, as it has been for so many people around the world, but I was given the opportunities. I had educated parents, and then I was able to immigrate to a Western democratic country where I was given tons of opportunities. I was always safe. I always had health insurance. I mean, these things are key components of success. But what Rod and I were talking about backstage before we went on was our kids and how we are going to raise resilient. Of course, we want them to be compassionate and caring and empathetic, but we also want them to be able to handle what this world has to throw at them, instead of looking down or burying their head in the sand. So I grew up in Tehran. I was born in 1977, which dates me. I'm 47 years old now. And
you're a kid.
Pardon? Yeah, almost. Well, halfway.
You're a kid.
Halfway.
You're a kid. I'm not double your age. I'm not double your, but I have children your age. So you're knocking it out of the park. Sorry.
Well, I appreciate it. I'm having a hard time reading my screen these days. I was telling Rod.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Tell him that story.
I'm telling you guys, I went to sleep and I was young, and then I woke up and I was old, and I was like, what the heck? I can't read anything anymore. I've got all these glasses everywhere. Like, they're just all over the place. Anyway, so 1977. We're going back to 77. Okay.
Yes.
Born in Iran. Okay. And just to give you guys some context, the Islamic Revolution in Iran happened in 79. So I was 2 years old when the revolution happened. And it was a very tumultuous time. And I grew up in the immediate aftermath of that revolution. So essentially the first 11 years of my life were spent during and after the Islamic Revolution.
Oh, so you didn't leave until after you had a dozen years of that understanding and learning, and so wow.
Yeah, we couldn't put out. Yeah. Because the other thing that happened during that time frame is the Iran-Iraq War happened. So there was also that conflict to deal with incredibly heavy civilian casualty, by the way. It was by the time we left, it was up to 6 rocket attacks a day into Tehran, which you did say correctly. Yeah, there was a lot happening. And so that era, that post or during the war, post-revolutionary era, was a very volatile time to grow up. I was privileged partly because of my family. We weren't wealthy, but we did have an apartment and we had access to food. My mom's side of the family are merchants, fruit merchants. So we actually, and I don't know how many of you have lived through a war, but to have access to fresh fruit during a war is
impossible.
It's impossible, right? So it's yeah. To this day, I eat 2 oranges a day. My uncle owned had an orange farm when we were growing up, and so that's where I come from. That's a type of privilege I come from. Folks who care, who get it, but definitely are not rolling in the dough. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's actually, you're right. You're actually making a higher point, a higher level point, in that you come from privilege because you come from people that struggled to make life not bearable, but comfortable. Bearable too, of course. But let me ask you a question. What an inspiring journey. See, I told you people about that.
They believe you. They trust you.
Okay, I'm going to try this. Shermin,
Yes, sir. You are knocking it
Wow.
out of Wrigley Field.
Ooh,
Go,
I'm freaking
Rod.
nailing this stuff. How did you develop the concept? And I was going to ask, this is your book, Tactical Empathy. Now, this might be a little ahead, but I want to kind of the rest of this conversation lead into your book, and your reason. Well, you have a philosophy now, and that philosophy is basing every one of the conversations we have. Let's keep digging into that because it's important for us all to know.
You got it. And I'd love to hear from the audience your ideas and thoughts on how I combine these two.
I got 20 comments here, so I'll flip them up. Yeah, but I gotta organize this and manage it. I have to work. I'm here to talk.
That is a Rod problem. That is not a Shermin problem.
Hey, come on.
I love you, man.
Okay, she's smart and she's aggressive. She doesn't care about me.
I do care. I have stoicism and empathy.
Hey, there you go. All right. So let's peel this orange.
Okay.
And get into the next things that are going. By the way, producer Barbie, she eats at least one banana, and a bunch of grapes. That's her breakfast every day, and some coffee.
Oh, that's an amazing breakfast.
Got me into eating fruits and stuff like that. I know how healthy that stuff is.
It's awesome, and I love it because they tell you can't eat sugar first thing in the morning. Well, I'll tell you what, you can if it's fruit. You really can.
Yes, it's different sugar.
It's a different kind of sugar. It's not processed. So here's the great thing about this question that your viewer asked: stoicism and empathy, stoic empathy, which is the way I live my life. It was, in fact, what I encountered during my childhood, because you guys, I essentially had to live two lives. I had to constantly pretend to be one thing when I was outside the house because I was living under an very oppressive regime that required me to be certain things. And then I could be something totally different when I was inside the house. And so
you could be you.
I could be me, to the extent I still knew what that was by the time I got home. I was a kid. No, but seriously, this is
good point. No, seriously, good point.
Yeah. And so I learned how to get really, really good at reading a room and knowing how much of myself I could reveal during that room. But I also really learned to love being authentic and appreciating how incredibly, incredibly rare it is. So what I learned to do from the time I was a kid, and I learned a lot from my parents, by the way, growing up too, is see what the expectations are in the room, then decide how many of them I'm going to meet in order to succeed, how many of them I'm going to push because I want to change the situation, and how many of them I'm going to subvert, and be intentional about it so that I'm not accidentally falling into a place where I'm conforming. That would be horrible. But if I am doing something that I have to do so I don't go to jail, or my mom doesn't go to jail, or my kid sister doesn't go to jail, that's a decision that I made in that moment. And that decision requires a certain level of stoic control from me so that I can move and maneuver. And the reading the room part and influencing it, that's the empathy portion. So
and that's information that's creating that, right? Because you're learning. You're like you said, reading the room. I know exactly what you're saying. And how are the people in that room going to be able to benefit most by the interaction with you, right?
100%. And also how the people I'm responsible for can benefit from my interactions in the room, right? So if you're a team leader, or if you're a parent, or whatever the situation is, you've got people who are less vulnerable than you and you're in charge of them, and you have to engage in this transaction or in this negotiation or deal with this traumatic situation. And that doesn't mean you're not open, doesn't mean you're not honest with your team, but you also have to protect your team. You're the leader, right? You're in charge of deciding. Yeah. And so the reality is that requires a certain level of control, and it also requires a certain level of awareness of your team. So what you want to do is you want to engage in influence over others by better understanding them with different degrees of emotional input, right? And then you want to exert influence over yourself so that you can be as authentic as you think is appropriate in any particular situation.
I noticed something recently because there's a history that is, I've actually done shows about it, so I won't get into all that. Everybody watching knows what I'm referring to. Not a big deal. I just don't want to waste the time. Your story's way more interesting. By the way, you're a great speaker. I love the way you're communicating. The living in Greenville, so somebody in Greenville loves the insight and resilience. How do you balance strategic action with empathy? Because empathy is actually what's developing that strategic asset. You're taking the information in from a stance of something different. In being empathy, you become more, like you said, authentic, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so here's the thing. Here's the cool thing about empathy. Empathy is a spectrum. And one end of the spectrum is total and utter emotional empathy, right? And even the coldest SOB has experienced this because they've watched their favorite television or movie character get punched in the face and recoiled, right? In response to that. And you are literally feeling you're feeling a pain response in response to their pain response, even though they're a fictional character on a box and a screen in front of you in your living room. And so take that same thing and convert it to how we are in person with the people we actually care about. Your pain in my heart. That's what we call emotional empathy.
Wow. Okay.
And then on the polar end of that, I got cognitive empathy. Cognitive empathy is, listen, I'm not going to walk in your shoes for a variety of different reasons, but I'm going to sync my steps with yours so that I can smell what you smell, feel what you feel, see what you see. And there are reasons why I'm going to do this. So for instance, in my book and also in my TEDx talks, I talk about, let's say, an encounter with the morality police on the streets of Iran. They want to arrest me. I'm not wearing my headscarf. I'm with my mom. I'm a kid. I'm 9 years old. My mom knows that she has to understand the morality guard, but she doesn't necessarily want to feel the guard's pain. That would not be appropriate in that situation. But she wants to understand it. What is it like to work for a brutal regime in the heat every day and repeatedly go around telling women the same thing over and over again, which is fix your headscarf while hanging that assault rifle?
Mom did this? Sorry to your mom did this? She observed and learning how to be empathetic and understand that. Your mom taught you that. That's what you're saying. In the situation, in the real time, and growing up in the culture. And wow, that you're well, no wonder you're so smart. I'm not giving you credit anymore. Mom,
Mom, for sure. She's still such a bad. Am I allowed to swear on your show? Can I say she's a
shit, yeah.
Okay. Okay. My mom is a bad.
Shit happens, right? Yeah, no, there is editing out there if it ever gets obnoxious, but hey, we're humans. We talk that way.
I do talk that way, but I've learned to control myself because of the kids. So
read the room.
Read the room. That's exactly right. And so I grew up with this fascination. I started to study debate in high school and humanities. And then in college, I did neuropsychology and philosophy with sort of like an emphasis on understanding other human beings. And then I went to, as I furthered my education, I became a lawyer. I became a litigator. And it was literally my job.
You're a corporate lawyer, right?
I'm a corporate litigator.
Yeah, across cultures, across countries, right? Or across nations.
Well, that's exactly right. Now I teach cross-border transactions at Northwestern Law School. But when I was practicing,
I love that school.
I like that school too. Evanston's a cool place, but the law school's downtown. The law school's in downtown Chicago.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay. Yeah, well, that makes sense.
By the lake. It's right next to
by the lake,
Feinberg. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. That's expensive territory there too.
Well, I don't know. I guess I don't have to pay the rent.
No. I know. Anyway, so I love that school. I love the philosophy. There's been, like any school, there's some issues that have come up recently with the sports and blah, blah, blah. But, that's a real, a lot of my friends and former and associates have all come from there, and impressive people, every one. Not even the law school, just the Northwestern itself. It's a good school.
Well, I'll tell you, the students I teach are amazing.
Yeah.
Really, really incredible. I call them kids. They're not kids. They're all in their 20s and 30s, but really incredible group of people. And so, yeah, what I did was I represented large multinational corporations in legal disputes. Sometimes it was in negotiation, but often it was in litigation. So I had to read the jury, I had to read the judge, I had to read the client, I had to read opposing counsel. I had to, in order to better
Wow.
advocate, right, for my client. And so I've sort of been practicing this for most of my life, almost half a century. And it's become one of my greatest passions to help other people sort of just be that way, be a little bit more intentional about how they approach a particular situation and make sure that they're approaching it in a way that serves them and serves those who are less vulnerable than them.
That was a great answer for that question, because through empathy, because of your background, and not everybody has this gift and ability, but I know what you're saying, because you become aware of everything that information is coming to you to be able to be able to have that best result with somebody else. And when it talks about oh, I just changed it. Screwed myself up there. How do you balance strategic action with empathy?
Yeah.
Exactly. You build your empathy so you know more, and then you can create a strategic strategy out of that, right?
I mean, here's the thing, Rod.
Or based on that.
That is spot on. And what's really incredible about the way in which you just siphoned it down into a handful of purely incredible words is that here's the thing. Everyone does know how to do this. And let me give you an example.
Okay.
Let's say you're a parent. Let's say you're in the middle of parenting your very young children and you received traumatizing news. And what you really want to do is yell, shout, scream, maybe punch a wall. I don't know what your habits are or what you do when you're receiving traumatizing news, but it's bad things. And you want to have a reaction. But you are in the middle of parenting your very young children, and you know that if you have a bad reaction, you will traumatize them. Your empathic understanding of your children allows you to gain control over the way you express yourself in that situation. Now, that's an extreme situation, right? But it's one I highlight as an example because I think
all the time.
People
when you're
parenting
your children, you got to parent your children, right?
You gotta parent your
Versus
children.
Control them.
Yes.
We were just talking about that the other day.
100%. Right. And listen, again, that doesn't mean you don't tell them what happened, but you have to control the way you deliver the message. You have to control your emotional response. And then you got to go and you got to deal with your feelings, man, because you can't just bottle them up and put them in a pit on the side of your stomach. But at the end of the day, it was exactly your empathy that allowed you to be strategic in the way you acted. What I want all you guys to do is I want you to take that power that you already have, that thing you've done all the time, either for your kids or your nieces and nephews or the teams you manage or people who are just more vulnerable than you, right? And I want you to be more aware of that process and then start collecting some tools so you can more intentionally engage in it in everyday situations, including everyday negotiations.
Wow. That makes so much sense, and never thought about it that way. It doesn't have to be a cute, cuddly little kid to have empathy and talk to them and parent them the right way. Your associates, your friends, your older family, everybody, right? That interaction, you're right. It's when you put it that way, it is easy. From what we discussed, I was looking at the point of this is a gift. It's not though. It's everybody, like you said.
It's a
right?
skill. Yeah, it's a skill that you can develop. Yes,
like a muscle. You build it up.
Exactly. This is your Stoic empathy muscle. And so, okay, so I'm seeing this question about leadership roles. So I've got another example to bring up for you guys that'll respond to that. So remember we talked about cognitive empathy on this end, emotional empathy on that end. Okay. So
Right.
this one is I'm walking in your shoes. This one is I'm just syncing my steps with you. Right. So
Yeah.
let's now put it in a corporate context. Let's compare let's say you're the CEO of a small family owned company and your board is trying to push you out. Hostile takeover situation versus you are the leader of a team and you're merging with another team, either external or internal, so you can make stuff together, sell them, and be a lot more successful. Okay. Here, we have essentially a hostile takeover. Here, we have a merger with joint merger integration needs, right? And so we need to integrate. We need to form this relationship and go forward from here to do beautiful things together. It's going to be long term. The amount of emotion I put into this empathic understanding, very different than the amount of emotion I put into this empathic understanding. I certainly want to understand the guy who's trying to push me out of my own company, but do I need to feel what he feels? Maybe not. But I do want to be close to the guy that I'm building a business with, right? With my partner. We need to understand each other, on a very, very deep level. Now, so this is, and it's not binary, right? It's a spectrum. So then think about all the places in the middle where you can fit. And the more you can, and the more you can slow that time down between stimulus and response. Stimulus, response in the middle is you. That's you. That's your willpower. That is your, if you want to call it soul, mind, your existence, your control. It's you in the middle. All sorts of things impact it. I'm not saying they don't. There's external power dynamics. They exist. But so do you, man.
Sure.
So do you.
Yeah.
And you're in this space. And if you can slow down everything that happens in the space, you can be a lot more deliberate about where you come in on this spectrum. But either way, understand the other person, no matter what, because that's always useful.
To use an example you gave earlier, we talked about you do your TED Talks or have however many times inside of Cubs field, and you're not a baseball player, but you just brought something up that any athlete would especially the better they are, the game slows down and it comes to them in comparison. When you're in life, if you can have what you said, life slow down, your decisions can be so much, you could become the Kobe Bryant of the Lakers, kind of thing. I mean, it slows down. So you're seeing things. What was the Matrix? You're talking about the Matrix.
I bring up the Neo example literally all the time.
Oh, you do?
Oh my gosh. And I actually also will sometimes bring up the baseball example because I'm not a pro player. I don't know how to slow time down in baseball, but I know how to do it in negotiation, right?
That's huge.
Yeah. And listen, we're all Neo in the story. Nobody else is one of the idiots in the Matrix, right? When we watch that film, we all identify with Neo. That's the character. We want to be the one who's aware, who sees things, and then can control themselves in response to these things. And that's all we're talking about here.
So good. That is so good.
Yeah.
I don't know where you picked that one up off of. I'm just trying to search through, and I didn't want to sit there and stare at it. But we talked about this combining, integrating empathy with strategic leadership, and that's critically important because also you have to have people buy in, right? I mean, that's part of that. If you're being one way and in a leadership role, you're forcing, and again, back to parenting, it's no different. Employees are kids, right? You're the parent, but I'm joking. Sorry. But the fact is the way you approach it with empathy, not only has the effect you're talking about, but just to build on that, it also has that effect of buy-in, right?
Mhm. I mean, I think the parallel between parenting and leadership is substantial, not from a
I,
I know better than you point of view, but from a I control more things than you do, right?
yeah,
I control
yeah,
your health insurance. I control whether your kid gets access to health insurance, right? And if your kid
yeah.
is sick, the amount of power you have in this relationship is far more limited than the amount of power that I have in this relationship. And therefore, I have some level of control over you. I don't control you, of course not. I'm just your boss.
Big
But
difference.
big difference. But there's a power dynamic here, and we need to be able to recognize the existence of that power dynamic. And then if we're coming at it from the employee side, which listen, we've all got somebody on top of us, right? In this
Yeah.
corporate world of hierarchy. And then so if you're coming at it from the I'm the less powerful party, how do I change the motivations, the desires, the thoughts of the leadership with whom I am engaged so that they can favor me more? Because slamming my fist on the table and yelling and shouting and screaming, maybe it would get me somewhere if I own the world, right? But it's not going to get me
Right.
anywhere given the situation. So it depends on how much power I have, right? My level of aggression will be effective depending on how much power I have. And so I need to decide what other tools are at my disposal. How can I influence the individual who has more power than I do? Yeah.
That's a great point. I mean, you get an automatic amount of attention or consideration the more powerful you are. But all the way through that, you have to have that insight. I'm cheating on our show's name. That insight to be able to have influence over that person, no matter what level of power you have. It's just more that you need the less power you have.
Well, I mean, it's a really fascinating analysis, right? It is definitely
It is.
situationally dependent, and you do start to see correlations. The less power you have, the more you can feel comfortable disengaging emotionally while trying to understand that person. The more power you have, right? The more your ethics, your integrity, your own value system require you to shift the way you relate to that individual, assuming that that's the right move for you in that time and the people you're responsible for. Because it's not just, listen, it's not just when the person is hostile from you. It's also, let's say you are a trauma counselor in a refugee camp working with victims of mass rape, or you are a surgeon working in an ER with gunshot wounds coming in left, right, and center. And you don't see the people you are serving as hostile to you, but you still need to emotionally distance yourself from them in order to serve them. Otherwise, you will not be able to serve them. So even if your
You'll be
intention,
influenced. Your actions will be different, less
exactly,
effective, even.
exactly, less effective. I mean, it's I have my family are really into global affairs and international dealings, and I've got a sister who works in Bangladesh right now with the Rohingya refugees, and so we talk about this
Oh,
all the time
wow.
about
Yeah.
how if she allows the trauma that she's exposed to on a daily basis to control her, to traumatize her, she will not be able to do her job. And then these people won't have a clean latrine. They already share like one for every 500 people or whatever.
Yeah.
So or they won't.
500 people? I mean, not just 5 or 6 or 12 people. You're talking about big numbers of people share
Big
one
numbers.
latrine.
Yeah, we've got 2
Wow. We don't
million
know. We have no
Rohingya
idea what we
refugees in
have here. Sorry.
Bangladesh.
Sorry. Go
You're
say that
you're
again.
spot on.
I
No,
talked
but you
over
know
you.
what? Thank you for bringing it home. We have no idea what we have here, and it's
None.
so important to fight for that and to recognize that and to point it out. And folks, that doesn't mean it's perfect, and it doesn't mean that it doesn't have a
No.
bunch of Swiss cheese holes in it, right? That need patching up. What I tell my kids
100%.
is like American democracy is like a suspension bridge, and it has all these cables, and sometimes some of the cables are cut, and it's really scary, but there's a lot of cables
Ooh.
and the bridge is not going to collapse. And guess what? You're still alive. You're not dead yet. Put up a cable. You know what I mean?
Wow. I've never heard that kind of analogy be. Wow. That makes a lot of sense. It does.
It works for my
Have
14-year-old.
another cable.
Start building. You're not
Yeah.
dead yet.
Oh my God, yes. Oh, absolutely. Hey, let me ask you, the next question that I have here, and I just want to catch up a little bit before we have to do 10 minutes at the end, just drilling down questions. I don't like just scratching the surface of things. I can tell you don't either. You want to get in down deep. And, you know, part of our conversation, I want to get to this question in a second, okay? But while you were talking, a thought came up. Have you ever seen the show or on social media, the clips of a show called the Ted Lasso show, something like that?
Yes. The feel-good
Okay.
show of the modern
I
age, right?
love that show. I haven't
I
actually.
saw the whole first season. I'm not up to date.
Oh,
but
I haven't
saw the
seen
whole
it. Where's it going? Is it on Netflix or?
It's on Apple, I think. It's on Apple TV.
Oh, an Apple. Yeah, I don't know. I just see it socially. I've never even really looked for it. But anyway, it's a feel-good show. It's a lesson show. You know, it's a dealing with human interactions and events and so forth.
Right.
Just to remind the people, I refer to this periodically here because it's impressive as hell. Ted Lasso, you know, went through some sort of divorce sort of thing. Like I said, I don't know the whole show, but in America, somehow got out and started taking over a professional, although not very good, football team in Europe, which is soccer, obviously, for us. And so there was a scene where the owner and the owner's wife split up. They split up the team. They were trying to do all the sabotaging thing. And long story short, there was a conflict between the guy who was the owner, no longer, and the guy's wife. He was trying to harass her, you know, and doing things and making comments. And they were at a pub, and there was a dart. You know how you play darts at well, I don't know if you know or not, but you play darts.
I do play darts. I actually used to sell dartboards and pool tables to pay my way through college. Yeah.
Have you seen Have you seen the scene I'm talking about?
I'm not sure. Tell me more. I think it is in the first season.
I think it is too, because he's still earning his way into, and I forgot the woman's life, but earning his way into trusting her, or her trusting him. But anyway, so this guy starts making comments that he's gonna, take over the lineup and this and that, basically just bullying his ex-wife, and while his new young little fiance is there with him. So you get the scene, right? So the guy, Ted Lasso, throws a dart, and it kind of goes, wherever it went. And then the guy said, "Hey, you want to do a wager?" The owner, because he saw, hey, here's another chance to embarrass him, make him look silly, right? So Ted Lasso set this guy up through.
He hustled him.
The dart thing.
Yeah.
Yep. So now he goes up there and he throws, and the guy says, "Let's do 10,000 pounds." He goes, "Oh, that's a little rich for me, but I'll tell you what, if you win, I'll let you do the lineups for the whole year. But if you lose, you can't go near the owner's box." Protecting his boss and compadre. So the guy says, "Okay, I'm on it." And then the guy opens up this really fancy,
his little dart case.
Exactly.
The weighted, perfectly balanced darts.
Exactly. So he thought, okay, I got this, man. I got this. God. He went in with the information he had about this guy. And so he thought he had this. And then right after they made the bet, Ted goes, "Oh shit, I forgot. I'm left-handed." And he throws a strike.
Like that scene in The Princess Bride.
Yes.
I am not left-handed.
And then as he's doing that, he comes back to him and says, "People used to always judge me. People that think they have it all figured out would judge, other people, and sometimes they judge me, and it used to really bother me." And then one day when he was picking up his kid from school, he saw painted on the wall, forgot who it was now. Anyway, there's this wall, and painted on that, it says, "Be curious, not judgmental."
Okay.
kind of part of the story we're talking about, in empathy. But also he said, if people would have, them being judgmental of me all my life, they would have asked questions. They would have asked questions. They would have been curious. They would have asked me things like, have you ever played darts before?
Right.
And I would have answered, yes, for 16 years in a pub with my dad until he passed away when I was 16 years old. And they asked him, and so he went down that road, ended up winning the match, obviously. But that would have screwed up the story if he would have lost. But
it would have been a terrible story, and there was a lot of buildup. So I sure hope that Ted Lasso won that dart match.
He nailed it. It was awesome. You got to see it.
I love so much about that story that you just told. First of all, I do think it helps to answer the question that's on the board, which is misconception about empathy in business negotiations is that empathy is some sort of soft, wanting the other person to succeed over us or be better than us. And by the way, it can be if it's your kid, but it certainly doesn't have to be, right? All it is being curious, asking questions and observing. And one of the things that tactical empathy specialists do is they give you tools that you can use to gather that information about the other person, because if you asked them, do you play darts, they might have lied. And so you try to figure out how to gather that information by observing things in a different way. The other thing that I really love about that story is darts, because darts can be used to communicate almost any point of philosophy or ethics in this world. I think so can pool, so can billiards.
Go on. This is interesting.
Here's the thing about darts. Here's the thing about darts that I love. The thing about darts is no matter how good you are, no matter how much you paid for your set, no matter how beautifully balanced and weighted it is, no matter how good a job you did taking your time aiming, when you release the dart, where it lands, not in your hands. Not in your hands. Yes. And that is this, the Stoics call it the dichotomy of control. What is it that I can control and what is it that I can't control? And yes, and understanding this so that, listen, if you showed up to that match and you brought your darts and you played your game just the way you were supposed to, you can still lose. That can happen. That's not up to you. It's how you show up that's up to you, and then how you respond to that loss. Okay, you lost. Again, going back to what I said to my kid, you're not dead yet. What's next, right? How are you going to respond to this? How are you going to build on this, right? And so
that's what builds character. That's what builds character. Loss, and then, like you said, you're gonna talk to your child and say, "Okay, you got knocked down. What happens happens. Welcome to life." And by the way, every time you try and do something more new or better, you're going to have those moments. But how you react to them, especially when you're teaching your kid, is lessons that kid is going to be built on, and a backbone that they now have, and that's so critical.
I love it. I love it. What I always think of when I'm dealing with kids is I try to compare to the physical. If my young child falls off the bicycle, skins their knee, cuts it up, it's bleeding everywhere, of course I help them up. I help them clean up the wound. I put a Band-Aid on it. But then I put them back on the bike and get them back out there by themselves. I don't start riding the bike for them, right? So I take that moment of joining the empathy. Oh, I'm so sorry. That hurts, right? Now what? Right. And then you're there for the then. It's like an improv game, yes, and yes, it hurts. And you can get up and do it again. And we do this for our kids in physical context, but we don't in emotional context. It's a lot harder to put them back on the bike after we've seen them fall. And we've got to do it for ourselves too. You got to get back on the freaking bike. Don't stay down.
How does that change? Because I remember another baseball analogy. Somebody skins their knees. The boy, skins his knees or whatever. The dad says, come over, or the coach says, come over and rub some dirt on it and get back out there. That was now today in today's kind of society. I mean, that was an extreme, but in today's kind of, but that was actually what, if you're in sports, you build your toughness, right? Today's generations are safe spaces and stuff that we as parents haven't been building our children up the way you're talking about right now. We haven't been parenting our kids to be able to get them ready for society, the good, bad, and the ugly, because they have to succeed through it all.
Right. They do. But they also need that support and that understanding from you. But it doesn't stop. But it doesn't stop there, right? And that is the combination. That's sort of like the magic combination, right? And this idea that my job is twofold. First, to support you, no matter how often you fall, okay? And second, to make sure you get back up, right? Both of those things are my job. If I'm lucky, hopefully I'm teaching you how to help other people get back up too. Right.
Yes.
Hopefully that is something. And we were talking earlier, Rod, that, your son is serving our country. And I mean, that to me, devoting your life, and there's a lot of ways to devote your life to service. You could go be a fireman. You could go be a teacher. There's a lot of ways. You don't have to pick up a gun if that's not your jam. But the reality is that devoting and dedicating your life to serving with a group of people who you did not pick, who are different than you, who come from places that are different races, different educational levels, and you got to figure out how to make a team with these people and accomplish a mission together. That is an incredible job. And if we could parent our kids that way, that would be an amazing thing. And man, I fail every day at this task. I'm not trying to tell you I've got it down. I've got a mission. Right. I've got a what and I've got a how, but I'm not perfect. I fail at this every day. And I try to just keep on bringing it back home, It's not that I'm telling you that you don't deserve to cry. It's that I'm telling you, you've cried. Now what? Right. And it's that difference. Yeah.
Yeah, that's huge. And what you talked about, the consistency, bringing that, not just like one time and acting different at other times, but that consistency is what's built within that the person or the child, that's what's important. Let me ask you something. Misconception about empathy in business negotiations. I want to pop a couple of these in there. I know we already kind of touched on this. This was a little bit ago, but I like that to kind of tie together some of the things you're talking about, empathy in business and seeing the bigger picture and all that. But when you first say empathy in business, I can see where misconceptions of that term, empathy, would give misconceptions, so to speak.
Yeah. Can I tell you where the biggest misconception is?
Yes, please.
Biggest misconception is that understanding equals alliance. Understanding.
Build on that.
Okay. So just because let's say I'm a mediator. I got a buddy. His name is Joel. He is a Mideast peace negotiator. This guy's got it rough. Okay. So his whole job. Yeah.
Whoa. Let's pause on that for a second.
Oh my gosh.
The guy's he's a negotiator for the Middle East.
100%. He's the one brokering back channel meetings. Yeah. And so he's got to be in the middle. He's got to understand what this person wants and needs and motivates them, and what this person wants and needs and motivates them. And that understanding cannot equal an alliance for him, because if it did, he would no longer be an effective mediator. And same, and he won't be able to help anybody. Right? It doesn't mean he's justifying anyone's actions. It doesn't mean he thinks it's okay. It doesn't mean he's on their side. He's just understanding where these people are coming from. Because tell you what, nobody in this world thinks they're the bad guy. Everybody thinks they're the good guy. Nobody thinks they're the bad guy.
I do.
Yeah,
I
well,
know, I do
you
all the
are.
time.
In your case, it's verifiably accurate. So in your
Okay,
case,
good, excellent. You do read the room good. Me. I like throwing myself under the bus, but you
oh, Rod,
keep
you're
going
so
ahead.
handsome and perfect.
Okay. Go on. Anything else? No. So that makes a lot of sense in what you're referring to, and if you want, while I'm going through another, you can give me more compliments. I'm not gonna stop here.
Keep the compliments coming, Sher. Keep them
Keep it coming. Yeah, right. So what's the first step in mastering the negotiation? And I'm going to add to Michael's question here, because there's different kinds of there's different ways that people can go after negotiating. There's good ones and not so good ones. So I'm assuming in the approach that is based on empathy, you're learning about how that person feels, whether it's an emotional, cognitive, or no matter what it is, you're reading the room. You're figuring out what will become acceptable. So I'm going to add to mastering negotiations with empathy. Or do you see a different answer for that?
No, I don't. The only thing I would add to it, Rod, is remember what we want to do is we want to pair our assessment of the situation with self-control as we enter into that situation, right? So if you want
good point. Add on that. Yeah. So just having
that,
empathy
right?
is up here, but the self-control is where it.
Yes. So why? Because we're human beings. We react to emotionally volatile situations. But if you can only react the way you think makes sense to react in any given situation, and again, that doesn't mean you don't yell. It probably does, but sometimes it doesn't, honestly, but I'm honest, sometimes you need to stand up and assert yourself and be a little bit more aggressive. And other times you need to calm down and be a lot more inviting, even in the way you use your tone. One of the things I teach because I do an advanced negotiations training at the law school called Negotiating with Tactical Empathy. And
at Northwestern Law?
At Northwestern, yeah. It's actually for the Masters of Science and Law program. So there are a bunch of older students in that program, more mid-level sort of marketing managers. Are you bowing down to my students? I hope so, because they're awesome.
No,
hey, guys.
you. And the students too, but I got to give something back here. Come on, man. That's cool.
I appreciate it. So here's the thing. When you are in the middle of that negotiation, you're experiencing that emotional reaction. Your ability to control that emotional reaction, not just the way you feel it on the inside, but the way you output it. How many times have you heard, it's not what you said, it's how you said it? Because your tone betrays you, your body language, right? So you want to be in control, not just of how you're processing information. Yes, but not just that, but also your output. What is your output here? What is it that you're telling this person? Are you telling them you're confused and weak, or are you telling them you're strong and powerful, or are you telling them you're understanding but strong? Whatever it is your message is, I'm not there to tell you what your message ought to be. I'm not going to judge you. What I'm trying to tell you is be intentional about it. Give it some thought and learn to adjust your tone, your body language, as well as your words in your output in response to that assessment. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So in building on that just a tiny bit, I've grown up and I recognize a lot of the things you talk about by reading the room, because I've given presentations and sold my equipment all my life for 30 years. Over that time, especially, I moved around a lot. I went to 8 different elementary schools, 3 different high schools. My dad was in the Marine Corps.
Were you an Army brat? Were you an Army brat?
Marine Corps brat.
Marine.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Cool.
Matt's in the Army. He's actually at Leavenworth. He's an MP. He wants to be a cop like his older brother, which is cool.
That's great.
Yeah, that's kind of neat. I think that's pretty neat. But if we look at this next question in here, or this next comment, this is exactly what the world needs right now, because it does. I mean, we need there's to bring it all back around and talk about what we're talking about in that sales stuff, and what you train to become better at, and go listen to people's like TED Talks, it gaining information. One thing that I've heard early on, and I don't know if the numbers are exactly correct, but on your point, the words you use is only about 8%. It's not a lot. I don't know if it's low as 8, but 8% of the actual communication.
I don't know if you just ballparked it, but you are spot on. They call it the 738-55.
Oh, there's another one.
Approximately, depending on the situation, on the culture, on the circumstances,
Sure.
blah, blah, blah. Approximately 7% of communication is your words. 55% is your body language. We do talk about body language. 38% your tone. Nobody talks about it. Nobody teaches you how to control your tone.
And that's the most important part.
Well, I mean, it's at least a few times more important than your words, right?
Yeah, because you come across combative or cooperative, depending on your tone.
If you're on the phone or even on a
yes.
Zoom and your full body language isn't available, it's almost all your tone. And so it carries considerable weight. I was actually just talking to a friend of mine recently, and we were talking about, I'm a fan of literature written by people who died 100 years ago. So I'm a very boring person in that sense, in terms of the books.
No, the language back then was so much better. It was kind of proper. It was beautiful.
Oh my gosh. My friend was saying, listen, how about email? You don't see tone in email. And I said, well, tell that to Jane Austen, because she knows how to put tone in email, right? Well, she didn't have email, but she knows how to do it in a paragraph.
Written down, yeah.
And of course,
the email of the time.
The email of the time. But of course, now we have more than just words. We have hieroglyphics. We have these little emoji guys, right? And here's the thing. It's cheesy. Listen, I'm not saying it isn't. And there's some circumstances in which it's inappropriate in a business setting, for example. It depends. But the use of an emoji can indicate tone in a text message, right? And kids know this. Alpha Gen, your kids, my kids, they know this really well, and they're very adept at it. And
we live by it.
They live by. We need to get better at this. We have this tool. Why not use it? And again, it's not always appropriate, but when available to you, use the tool. Always use the tool. Communicate.
You know what the original tools were there? Sorry to.
What? No, man. Go ahead.
People would sometimes, either by accident or whatever, but make the whole line in caps. That's yelling at somebody, or multiple that's how far we are.
Exclamation point.
We have emojis now, so we're moving along and being able to create more tone.
Subtlety. Yeah, because there is some space between a normal sentence and one that's in all caps and has 7 exclamation points, but that also effectively communicates tone, right?
It is. It does.
Yeah, this is a reality. And so we can do this. It's more difficult because you don't have body language, right? And you're not face to face with the person. The more in each other's physical space you are, this is the part the AI can't replace, right? This is the part robots will never take over. They might write the brief, but they're not going to do the closing argument in front of the jury, because you need to be there physically in front of the people you are trying to convince to come around to your way of thinking, read them, and respond in an articulate manner that hopefully is true to your value system, by the way, and your own moral code. Is that regular Coke or Diet Coke that you're drinking? Also, what color is it? What color Coke? Is that like white Coke?
You picked up on my trailer, didn't you? That, you know, where the one where it says, wait, is that fake Coke? And it slows down.
Wait, are you racist? Why is your Coke white?
I'm bi. I like a little bit of caffeine to keep up with my brain, to be able to keep up with you. But I drink water because too much caffeine gets a little edgy.
You get a little crazy. Yeah.
I am not racist, dang it.
I love that you twisted I love that you twisted my racism joke and suddenly became a bisexual as a result of it.
Hey, we range on topics here at this show. This is just a conversation. It can get into the gutter sometimes, and it can be educational. Who knows?
It's 2025. More men should be bi.
Absolutely. No comment, but I don't know how to react to that.
There's no good way. There is no good way,
and I appreciate you doing that for me. I'm gonna read the next one here. This conversation is gold. I put that up before you started accusing me of all sorts of different things. So there's so much of wisdom being shared. I like that comment. Let me hit a couple more here because we haven't hit half of these at all. How do you see the future leadership evolving with the emphasis? Oh, that's what you mean by being empathy, having empathy, right?
Yeah, that's what I meant.
The question: how does leadership evolve with more empathy? So how do we change this? Because the reason you're doing I expand my questions, but the reason you're doing this is because you see something about human society or the human being that is there, but isn't being utilized. So that's obviously not a small problem in this whole conversation. That's a big problem. How do we get people? How do we get society? I mean, obviously it's shows like this. It's having the conversation, but build on that a little bit. How do we make this happen? That's what the show's about. We want to empower the middle class for action.
Yeah.
Not war, not bullets, not any of that. Just, positive stuff.
Here's what I really love about that question, because normally I get the opposite question is, what if I come in with the skill set, but the other guy's got the same skill set, right? And I lose the negotiation because I don't have the upper hand. This individual, the luxury rental doctor, is coming at it from a very different perspective, which is how do we move society upwards? And here's my answer. Yeah. And here's my answer. First of all, both those things work to your advantage, right? Whether you're the only one in the room who understands the skill set, or you've been able to elevate the entire room, one is obviously better than the other, but the other is also good. As long as you move forward, advancing your own understanding by, as Rod said, watching shows like this. Please read my book. I think I get $1 every time somebody buys.
Say the name of it again.
Stoic Empathy. My publisher is Hay House. They're part of the Penguin Random House company.
Oh, that's the big boys.
They're the big boys. They're the big boys.
I have a book that I'm querying. I'm going to need to take it backstage, and we'll whisper this one too. But I need to figure out how to be an author.
Yeah, 100%. I know.
I'm just kidding. I have 3 books, different. That helps me. And I assume the same with you. It clears out my mind. There's times I need to write. I'm a poet. I do different things. Some of the stuff's on the show. Some of the shows are about the book, but that's a great tool to be able to look at what your thoughts are and kind of self-evaluate what you're. I look at stuff I did a while ago. It's totally different than now. Not necessarily the subject matter, or it is, but the tone,
the style,
the style. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
You ever pull something from something you wrote years ago into something you're writing now, just to sort of disrupt it with something that's still authentic to you? I think it's such a cool thing.
100%.
Yeah,
Listen, it is.
I'm poet. Okay, so I'm Persian. Poetry is our life. It is our soul. When I was growing up back in the
way you communicate, right? Earlier writing was kind of always in a poetic theme, right?
I mean, the greatest poets in the world. Rumi and Hafez, we inspired Shakespeare and Goethe and the British and the German. Yeah. And so here's the thing. When I was growing up, we used to play these poetry games where you would say a verse of poetry, and then the next person would have to say a verse of poetry where the first letter of their verse is the last letter of your verse, which, by the way, is also a great active listening game, because you can't start thinking of your verse until they are done speaking, because you're waiting for the letter, right? So
huge skill. Yeah.
And you know who wins that? Who wins that game every time? The oldest person in the room. And that is so cool to me. That is so cool to me because listen, we are better at waiting until the person has finished talking, and we have a greater depth of understanding of the world. And it's such a great lesson in active listening, empathic understanding of the room, and also our ability to empower and grow ourselves as human beings and advance our knowledge. We might be a little slower on the uptake than we were 20 years ago, but we know 30 times more than we did 20 years ago. And that
Yeah.
is an asset and an advantage that we can use in slowing down that time, like the baseball player, like Neo. When we come into it, slow that time down and remember your commitment to language. Language. And if you're no good with the words, then use the tone, use your body. It's more important anyway. And practice that. Practice, 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 practice.
So relating that comment, yeah, practice is huge. Again, let's throw another baseball thing out there. But they say that you have to practice a swing 10,000 times before you get it down. You have to build that muscle memory, right? And that's exactly what you're talking about here.
Right.
If in empathy and competitive strategy coexisting, we already hit on this a bit, but doesn't empathy become your strategy so they can coexist and actually work a better strategy? Because we talked about how do we get everybody in society to kind of build this way. Well, not everybody is, even negotiators, right?
100%.
The good ones are, but there's always a range, right?
Right.
There's that top 1%, there's a whole bunch, 80-20 rule, right? So yeah. So what do you think?
Okay, so here's the thing. First of all, it depends on your level of power that you have in the room. Because if you come in the room and you got the power to walk away, which is incredible, which by the way, most of the time we don't have. If you got the power to walk away, can you imagine the freedom and flexibility that you would have in that room with how you utilize your empathy, right? But if you come into the room and you cannot walk away, you've got to close this deal or your kid's not going to eat this month, whatever the case is, right? It happens every day.
Yeah.
So how are you going to get the other person to stay in the room and get the deal done in as favorable an arrangement as you can possibly get, which would have been very different if you had the power to leave the room. Let's not mince words. But by utilizing empathy, your empathic understanding of the other person, whatever it was you started out in terms of your power level, you can level up. I'm not telling you it can get you all the way here, because that would be a lie. If you came in with the power of the United States federal government behind you, with all their guns and tanks and nukes, that's a different story. There's a guy, Chris Voss, he writes about tactical empathy, and he's a former FBI hostage negotiator, so he utilized empathy in his hostage negotiations.
Yeah.
But he was coming in, again, he had a SWAT team behind him ready to come in. What if you don't have a SWAT team? Then what do you do? How do you extend that understanding of the other into a situation that results in influence? And that's where it's at, right? And that's where a lot of the Stoicism material comes in, which is maintaining control, slowing down the time, judging how emotionally connected you deem it wisest to be. And by the way, it can shift from the beginning of the conversation to the end of the conversation, from the beginning of the negotiation to the end of the negotiation, right? And then implementing your understanding of that person in order to gain influence over them and maintain control over yourself, right? So that's the way that you would go about at doing that. And you're right. I think you're right that the greatest negotiators in the world do this, but you don't have to be a good negotiator if you've got a big gun hanging around your neck, right? But you do if you're the other guy. And so there's so sometimes we see people who get what they want, but that doesn't mean they're a good negotiator. They just get what they want because they got the power to get it.
Yep.
And that's another way of getting it. And if you feel good about yourself at the end of the night, you go to sleep just fine. God bless you, man. I'm not trying to judge you or anyone else. I'm just saying I want to be true to who I am. And to be honest,
authentic.
I want to be authentic to me, because I learned when I was a kid, it really sucks not to be. It's really confusing and difficult to be something.
I don't believe anybody else out here, at least, I'm in pretty good odds of saying that. I don't think anybody else has had to experience that being me, not being me in a situation that's more radically different, that's more difficult, that's, hell on earth is you. So you got credibility, you got cred, street cred.
Well, I appreciate it, but oh my gosh, every Iranian, right? We're on the streets.
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. Yeah, of course. Not
I
just
hear you.
but most people don't.
Well, living in America, you definitely have a lot more freedom to be authentic to yourself. Having said that, I don't show up to court in a bikini as good as I think I might look in a bikini.
There is a mental. Okay, hold on. Let's just pause.
There's a system in place here, And as I've gotten older, and by the way, as this country has gotten more tolerant, when I first started practicing law, I was told don't wear ethnic earrings, don't wear pants to court, only skirts. Yeah, these are, things we were given written in a memorandum that was sent to us. A lot of that's changed. There's still can't wear your bikini. You will lose. You can. You're not going to get arrested, but you'll probably get kicked out of the court. You might get held in contempt, actually, and arrested.
Yeah, the judge probably, depending on what their feelings are, you could be in a lot of trouble.
You could be in a lot.
Then you'd have to wear that bikini to because he put you in contempt. You're in jail now. Now you're wearing a bikini in jail.
Jail. That's not a good idea. And you're in city jail. You're in city jail. You're in general lockdown. Yeah. That's no. Let's not do that. Having said that, I am, and you know why I bring up that example? Because again, I am Iranian. I believe a woman should be able to wear what she wants to wear, whether it's on her head, on her body, wherever. But you should also. But you should be aware of the consequences, right? Look, there's a reality to the situation that you're entering. This is why my daughters have to learn Brazilian jiu-jitsu. It's not optional in my household. Yeah, you need to learn how to flip, because if you get punched in the face and you're down on the ground, doesn't matter how strong you are, gravity's against you. If you don't know how to flip the person, you're not getting out of there. And you don't have to win that fight. You got to just flip them and get the heck out of there is all you got to do.
Yeah. And you know what? That's adding to what we were talking about before. You're raising your children to be able to have certain tools to flip them and run like hell or whatever. But, those are things that now that person not only has that skill, but I remember taking, growing up, my parents lived in Okinawa and so I have a lot of Southeast Asian influence, my food and different things. But we had to learn karate. My sister and I actually taekwondo, and it was a defense. I don't know if you know it, but anyway, so
yes, I'm familiar.
Same idea. It builds stuff inside you that the rest of the world who hasn't had that doesn't experience. You have that extra stuff.
Well, if I'm allowed to go there. So I think sparring. No, can't talk about sparring.
You're not allowed to go there. No. Even though I just was there, you can't.
Badass. This feels inconsistent.
It could be, maybe.
So
anyway, go ahead.
I actually think sparring, right? Now, in an ideal world, I'd love you to spar in a way where you get hit in the face. But any kind of sparring, any kind of thing where you get hit and you have to stay rational, stay calm, and never lose your awareness of your opponent. Never. Oh, wow. And listen, and sometimes life is a punch in the face and you are completely discombobulated and disoriented.
Absolutely.
But if you want to win, if you want to be the championship fighter, then you got to keep your wits about you despite the punches that are coming your way. And that is a lesson in Stoicism. We just need to flip it into an emotional thing. How do we expose ourselves to things that make us uncomfortable, which for some people is, being in an ice bath, but for someone else, it might be serving the homeless because we don't like it because it makes us uncomfortable. Right.
Great point. Great point. So, just being a better society, a better person. This has been the best live show I've watched in a while. What do you mean in a while? Bob, come on. What do you mean a while? This is the best. Yeah,
I
Bob.
like Bob. Hey, Bob, if you're
So
still there,
insightful.
and I mean this, if you're still there, drop your address into the chat or something, and or let these guys know what it is. I'd be happy to send you a signed copy of my book.
Yeah. Also, oh, that'd be awesome. Yeah, absolutely.
Go,
I'm
Bob.
glad you brought that up because as I you know, at the end of this, we'll kind of sign off. I'll put you back in the green room and do some administrative stuff, probably more self-advertising at the end. And there's a little video. But while that's going on, put that in the chat. And I don't know, some people can go into the private chat, me and you kind of thing.
Yeah.
But and if that happens, I'll copy and paste it and put it over while I'm closing down the show before it ends. So people also have that.
No worries. No worries. But for anyone else who wants it, you can get the book. You can get it anywhere. It's everywhere. If it makes your life easier to click a button and make Bezos's pockets a little bit richer, click that button. It's fine. Or
say the name again. Say the name and your name.
Stoic Empathy by Shermin Kruse. It's everywhere. If you love your local bookstore, that's no problem at all. Request it. They'll get it in stock for you. I think Target's going to carry it. So it should be everywhere. So hopefully you won't have a hard time obtaining your copy. And the audiobook has 10 additional tracks of exercises and meditations. I don't know if you're into meditations, but there's a few of those.
I am. I haven't always been, but I have been since some things happened to me and different things needed that with the stress level. It's amazing. I mean, I'm different. You're different because
self-control. It's just another way of, it's just another way of getting punched in the face.
Practicing self-control, right?
It really is. Your ability to maintain control over your breathing for any period of time, it is difficult. I really think it's as hard as getting punched in the face, by the way. I don't think
I think it's harder. Because a punch in the face is like, ow. Controlling your breathing takes a long time and you got to stay with it,
So true. So true.
Well, you know what? This has been fabulous. We got to do a follow-up too, if that's okay with you. I would love to do that and attend one of your classes well, they won't let me in. What am I even kidding for? You have a great okay. Hey, there you go. The lot of stuff that you've accomplished. There's a lot of credibility behind you. That power there's a lot of credibility behind you because of what you have already been through and gone through and built up. And as a closing thought and a wave by guy. Is that even a word anywhere? Bagai?
Listen, Shakespeare invented 5,000 words. So
he did?
Yeah.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah.
And before you say goodbye instead of bagai, one time I said the younger people and the older people on it. I said, oh wait, I said that wrong, didn't I?
The other way. The other way.
Exactly. A little dyslexic.
You were going based on cellular regeneration. So that was where your mind was at. You're just 7 levels above the rest of us is what's happening.
I like to say playing chess. You ever see Star Trek back I forget which one
God.
it is.
Are you a Trekkie?
Three-level chess.
Oh my gosh.
3-level chess versus playing checkers.
40 chess. You guys, if you're Trekkies, if you're Trekkies, my book is full of Star Trek references. I am a huge
I didn't even try to make that happen. I nailed that. I'm on right now. Go ahead. Say what you're saying.
You're winning. Good high point to end on.
Yeah, absolutely. So any last comment there? And a wave goodbye.
Well, I do want to say shout out to our hometown of Chicago and your hometown of Naperville, 2 really, really great locations. Thank you so much to all of the viewers who joined us today and all of your excellent, amazing questions. I am hopeful that Stoic Empathy can be a tool that you can use in your life to get ahead and gain an advantage and keep your relationships and stay true to your own moral code, whatever that might be.
Yeah, because that makes you become authentic.
Yes.
Which is important.
A rare
Say bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Have a great one. We'll talk again soon. I'm going to throw you not throw you. Sorry.
You're throwing me all
That's
over
where
the
a word that's where a word really has an effect. I'm going to help you get back to the green room, and I'm going to close up a few things, wrap up our conversation, and let's keep in communication. Type that stuff in the chat so I can move it over if you would. Otherwise, we got it on tape, so it's not going away anywhere soon, right?
Yeah.
All right, Sher, thank you very much. We shall
Thanks
see
for
you
having me
soon.
on.
You bet. All right, so that was awesome, man. That was awesome. I knew it was going to be good. You read her profile and some of the information she sent to that we went back and forth on, so we could kind of get to know each other a little bit, or about each other a little bit, just to know where to drive questions or conversations. It's always important. But when I started doing the research on it, on her, sorry, not it. She's laughing at me back there. I don't blame her. Anyway, that was just an impressive background, and somebody that you can have credibility, or have confidence that there's credibility about evaluating and listening to this information, because it's obviously a trail, a history, of what she stands for and what we all need to stand for. Sher's, another one of those people. I talk about this government was put together by our founding fathers, and they gave us, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and all that. But the original concept, which we've kind of really gotten away from, which is, I think, a problem. But in the original concept, people would go to Congress or whatever, like Sher said, because they have a problem or something that needs to be fixed. But because the old intent was, you come from the field, you come from the doctor's office, you come from the lawyer's office, and you serve your time, you give back to your country. They do that in different ways, where all people in, different parts of the country have to serve like she said, service. Another way to have service is to come in and give back to the community in the world that has allowed you, and not allowed you, but you know what I mean, supported your growth to as high as you can take it. All right, I am going to wrap up a little bit here. I'm sure. Oh, wait. Oh, I got to put Barbie up there. Show invaluable insight. Thank you, Barbie. Great show today. Ariel, I think we talked to her earlier. Anyway, I'm Rod Duff. This is Insights and Straight Talk. As the video's going in the end, I'm going to see if, I got a couple texts there, so I'm going to move them over, check them in the thing, and I also can put them in the comments. And if you want to share, put them in the comments after they go in. Obviously, do everything you want. We'll be getting back in touch with each other about different things that we're doing and so forth. And this is Insights and Straight Talk. We're on YouTube at Rod Duff 1939. As you all know by now, my name is, my parents screwed with me a little bit, RODD DUFF. Now, my middle name's Dwayne, so it could have been RODD DUFF. And Barbie knows why I'm saying that. So I'm Rod Duff, Insights and Straight Talk on YouTube, and we're going to start. I've got some people that we're working together to pull just sound off so we can put it on Spotify and other things, just obviously the vocal part of it. So with that, I am out.
Hundreds of trillions of dollars coursing through our economic veins, there exists a pathway where no U.S. citizen needs endure poverty. Every child should be shielded from involuntary hunger and thirst. By eradicating greed and corruption, we pave the way forward. This chapter delves into the rationale behind our governmental expenditure and prompts a critical inquiry into how our leaders allocate our resources.